my advice now to that younger self would be, you do not have to play the cards you were dealt. You can get new cards. You can slide your cards to the dealer and get a brand new fucking hand. Or you can fold this hand. You can fold and then get dealt in a brand new hand. Not that I'm like a big poker player or anything. You can absolutely get new cards, right?
Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith, and if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast and you want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links down below. But before you do that, my friends, I would like you to stick around for a conversation between me and my brother from another mother down in Nashville, Tennessee, James Moore. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks for having me on. Sorry, I'm a little stunned by your intro there. That was good.
Thanks, brother. I've had a couple episodes to practice, and it's gotten a little bit more refined, and I do the big breath in or right before I do it, because it takes quite a bit. I understand why Bruce Buffer gets red when he's just like giving her. So it's pretty sweet. But I like to set the pace to bring some good vibes and bring a pretty positive trajectory into the conversation. And for the most part, I'm pretty calm beforehand, and that's how we get the opening going.
Yeah, you gotta hype yourself up. I dig it.
Sweet. So, James, my friend, I like to start the podcast with a simple question. How is it that you impact the lives of the people around you?
That is a good question. I believe my big impact with people, the people that are closest to me, is in fitness education. I like to be that reference source, or that facilitator, if you will. I'm a personal trainer, and I teach group fitness classes as well. And I've built a really great community, built a lot of trust with all the people that I interact with and that I train. And they come to me with all the bullshit they see and hear on the internet, and they're like, hey, what's this? What's that? I'm like, oh, that's good, that's cool, or this is the gimmick, yeah, fitness education.
Nice. So you're changing the bodies and the minds, I imagine, of the folks around you. I dig that. When I was creeping on you and researching a smidge, I knew that you were in the military before, but I didn't know much about your story further past that point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you messed yourself up pretty good early on. Like, you got messed up pretty good with weightlifting, or lifting some weights. Did that moment in time really contribute to your knowledge base and being able to develop trust in the people that you work with now?
Ooh, I've never thought about it that way. Yeah, it had to have. Absolutely. That was when I hurt myself, lifting weights, that was a very defining moment. Didn't know it at the time, but it set me on a certain trajectory that I've been on ever since. And I've never thought about it that way before. I would say simply yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And would you be open to sharing for more context as to what happened?
Totally. Absolutely. This is pretty much my brand story, man. This is like, the making of a monster in a sort of way. When I was in high school, I played every sport that we had. I was never really particularly outstanding at any of them. Just played for fun. Got into high school. Football was like the big one. You know, I was a big kid and you had in a small southern town, so you have to play football. I never really enjoyed it, but I did it. My school also had a powerlifting team. So powerlifting, I'd say in the last decade has really gained a lot more mainstream steam. So squat, bench press, deadlift. And my school had a fucking competitive traveling powerlifting team. And it was a really small school. We were 1A, which means small. There was like 100 kids in my class when 123 when I graduated. Very small school. But every year at the state championship, we would win. We would crush big schools. We would crush the private schools. Everybody. We just dominated. There was something in the water. I can't take any credit for it, but there was just a lot of dudes at my school that were like country farm boy strong, you know. Two examples of that. One kid named Timmy McGee and another kid named Taylor McGee, as 17-year-old high school boys, benched press 445 pounds. And then the other one deadlifted 700 pounds. That's fucking crazy, right? Like high school boys. Just to like add some context to how serious it was taken. I went in for just like a routine deadlift. Not to brag, it was 405 pounds, which is like just a little bit more than half of what the other guy did. And on the way down, I rounded my back pretty severely and blew out some discs, herniated my two discs in my back. I didn't really know what happened. I just knew that it hurt and I was very uncomfortable. Immediately like limped home and then woke up the next morning and I couldn't get out of bed. I was in so much pain. Let's see. Yeah, I was 17, just about to turn 18, and I was so scared. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't say anything, which is dumb, so dumb. Which, you know, we kind of talked about that a little bit before. Yeah, I didn't say anything to anybody. So I just walked around for like 2 days in a ton of pain. My left leg couldn't move it at all. And well, I could just barely. And after the second day, one of the coaches was like, "Hey, what the fuck is wrong with you? Are you okay?" Basically. And I told him, you know, I hurt my back, this and that. And they were like, "Well, yeah, you need to say something. Like, we have insurance for this. We need to get you to a doctor like now." And when I say coaches, what I mean is like buff dudes in the community who are also school teachers, because again, super small town. So there was no coaching. Like, I didn't know what glutes were. I didn't know what a core was. I didn't know what the posterior chain or a hinge. None of that shit was ever educated to me. It was just put your feet here, put your hands here, and put as much weight on the bar as you can. And like, look at the ceiling. That was the only cue, which is bad, which is not good coaching, especially for youth athletes. Like, we don't need that kind of stress on our bodies. So from that point, I went to a spine specialist in the next town over. They did an MRI, got L4, L5 discs are herniated. The spine has been twisted. The left hip has been like upwardly rotated, and that's causing all this compression and all this pain and all this stuff. And then they said, you know, you're never gonna play sports, you're never gonna lift weights, you'll be lucky if you can jog, but you're never gonna be physical again. None of that. Like, you're done unless you get this surgery, right? And so thankfully, my mother was like, "No, you're not gonna cut open my teenage son. Get the fuck out of here. You're not doing that. Absolutely not." So thankfully, didn't do that. I went to one physical therapy appointment, and I was in so much pain I could not do anything. I had true sciatica, so just like a ton of nerve pain going down my legs, debilitating pain. Couldn't walk, standing hurt, sitting down No, couldn't sit down. Laying down hurt. There was no position I could get into really that didn't cause pain. And it was like a lot of pain. 10 out of 10, like ambulance pain. That went on for a while. And then slowly, very slowly started to somewhat get better. Nobody really gave me any answers of like, you need to do this, you need to do that. It was just surgery. You have to get your spine fused so it can't move anymore, that sort of thing. Luckily, I was a young kid, 18 at the time. And I don't know what it's like in Canada, but we had basic cable. So you got channels like 1 to 60.
Yeah.
Those are the channels you can watch. And sometimes you would get channel 99, which would come in like really fuzzy, and it was HBO. It would be really fuzzy, and you couldn't really tell. The sound was like super loud or super dim, you know, because you're not paying for it. You're not going to be able to watch it, but you could kind of make out like what it is. Yeah. And I shit you not, like one night I'm watching channel 99, or I flip to it, and it turns out to be this like this NFL physical therapist person talking about spine health, right? And it's like, it's really fuzzy. It's really late at night. I'm like messing with the volume so I can hear it, so I can see it. And they're talking about how when these NFL guys, they get hit, they get hurt, they get rocked, and, you know, their spines need to be safe and healthy. And the best thing to do is to move. That's the best thing that we can do, is just to get them to continue to move their bodies. And I took that as gospel, because this is something you can do, versus what everybody else is saying you can't do anything ever again, which was a big fuck you to any kid. And then they talked about like some yoga poses that they do, which turns out to be like the pigeon pose and the figure 4, and just some basic stretches. So like I did those things and eventually got to a place where I could move around somewhat pain-free. Yeah, with that injury, it had me decommissioned for such a long time. I ended up gaining like 40 pounds. You know, I was really active. I was an athlete, and then I just went to not moving at all, and I was still eating so much food, gained a ton of weight. And then I was like, you know, good enough to where I could move around pain-free. And so then I joined the United States Army. And I went in for my physical. They asked me if I had any injuries, and I was like, no, I don't. And they accepted me.
That's sweet, dude. How? Oh, I think I'm sure you've heard it before, but Steve Jobs has that quote where you can connect the dot. You can only connect the dots looking backwards rather than forwards. So with your time during that, actually, you know what? How did that period of time, that injury, develop and fortify your mind? And then having that go into the military, did it contribute to maybe a little bit more resilience? And then did that resilience stack up more as you went through the military before you left?
I don't think so. No. I spent the majority of that time in fear that I was gonna be in pain, that was gonna happen again. I don't know that resilience part really built up until way later on, because this, you know, injuries happen, and then your likelihood of re-injury is increased by like 5,000%. So it happened again. It's happened multiple times. It wasn't until the last like 2 years that the narrative has changed, and the science and the findings and everything that's being pushed on like a mainstream level, hopefully now, is that back injuries happen, And the way to fix this is to strengthen your muscles. Strength cures all. Strength is the answer, right? And that's so simple. And I can do that. That's my job. Like, I'm so good at that. So great. I don't need a spine surgeon. I don't need a specialist. I can fucking work out. I can lift some weights the proper way. Yeah, that resiliency has been built only recently. And it wasn't until somewhat recently that I, really look back and reflect on that and have someone like yourself ask me these questions to connect those dots, to realize, to really like see the path that I've been walking.
Nice. Yeah. Something I think is really cool with the time that we were in Richmond, because we were there for 3-4 days, and something that I thought was really cool is the depth of conversation, how quick everyone there, that the whole household of 10 to 12 individuals that we had going on, I thought that the how much depth of conversation, how deep the conversations went so quickly was, and I think there's something really cool with that. But main idea or main thought on there is you sharing parts of your story, or parts of, well, it's a story. Life is a story. I'm a story. You're a story. Everyone else is a story. And you got, in my opinion, a solid heart. I think that knowing what your backstory was or is awesome in understanding the person that you are today. And we don't need to talk about things like that, but it was just a thought that I had that I wanted to address immediately before I forgot about it. But you got like an awesome heart, you got an awesome soul, and you're like freaking scoliosis as fuck. You went from probably possible scoliosis to scoliosis. and and how is it, if you were to speak to your 22-year-old self, so like almost a decade ago kind of idea, if you were speaking to that self with the wisdom that you have now, because we were talking about birthdays coming up, I imagine that you were a much different person at that point in time. Yeah. If you went back in time and you can change the future, like nothing now would change, but it was just like a little time bubble. It was a time bubble where you were just hanging out with that 22-year-old self.
Yeah.
With the background that you've had, what would be the wisdom that you would impart on that fella?
Oh my gosh. Well, that is a really good question. I can't change the future. Mm-hmm. And I can remember some big events at 22. I don't know that I would impart much, because thinking like, if I did impart anything worthwhile onto that 22-year-old me, would I have done anything differently that would have led me to where I am now? And you're saying can't change the future. So like, does that come into play? Man, when I was 22, I came back from Afghanistan. That's when I got home. And I spent the next year being a literal crazy person. So I don't know that I would have listened to it.
That's legit.
To be honest. Gosh, I don't know.
That's fine. I ponder this question as well. And it would be quite funny, because I would go back in time, and at that point, I would probably be at a bar. So if it was me that popped up, and let's say like if I were to show up, and then in the perception of my younger self, I would just look different. Like it wouldn't be all, that's how I envision it. And it would just be like me hanging out. I'd be like, oh, hey kid. And then even with the knowledge, I would try to like say something and be like, man, like if you actually buckle down in this aspect of yourself, if you pulled more of this part of you out rather than pushing it down or masking it, or in that particular case, drowning it, you may have a little bit of a simpler time. And I actually think of it where a lot of the information that we got going on is our subconscious self that's kind of going through that point in time. So I think the information of that younger self could be like a subconscious little seed planted, and then it eventually fosters to this point. And I think that my younger self would be very resistant to even speaking to me, and would probably be surprised that I'm not drinking, but would also be very surprised that I would be a partaker of the ciga weeds and the cannabis. And I used to be very like straight edge on that one, where I would be very, very judgy in that case. And a buddy of mine, Calvin, the one I was telling you about with the birthday being a month apart, he said that to me one day. He's like, dude, if you went back in time and if you were talking to your younger self, he'd be like, oh man, you're such a loser, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's just kind of interesting that shift and that growth over time that is kind of funny. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. I have one bit of advice that I would give my younger self in that time. And I say this, what your story helped pull it out of me, helped me to realize, yeah, this is one bit. I also think my younger self would be hesitant to talk to my current self. I would probably hate me.
Interesting.
I would definitely be judgy. I was straight edge at the time as well, but in a different sense of like, I was very like military, very squared away, very clean cut, very, if you're not that, you're a fucking loser type shit. And now I'm the complete 180 of that, right? I haven't shaved my face since I got out in 2016. I've cut my hair one time, and totally different lifestyle. So I can relate to that. Different person, different time. Yeah. I got the worst advice that year from a very dear friend. And his advice was, you have to play the cards you were dealt. You have to play the cards you were dealt. My advice now to that younger self would be, you do not have to play the cards you were dealt. You can get new cards. You can slide your cards to the dealer and get a brand new fucking hand. Or you can fold this hand. You can fold and then get dealt in a brand new hand. Not that I'm like a big poker player or anything. You can absolutely get new cards, right? And when he said that to me, I believed him. I took that as gospel of, okay, you're right. I have to play these cards. And I've learned now that no, you do not. You can get new cards.
I like that. I think that's a great reflection actually, because how many times I imagine that generally that would be, because I've heard that before. I don't think I've ever been told that, like, you got to play the cards that you're dealt. But I think understanding that there are options to being able to play the game in the way that you want to play the game, and it's developing skills and characteristics to be able to play the game to the best of your ability. And it's interesting taking advice from folks that are not playing their own game. They're playing the game that they've been told to play rather than adopting their own game to play.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. I'm glad I pulled that one out. That's a great one.
Yeah, it's a good one. You can change a few words and interpret it however you'd like. But yeah, exactly like you said, they've chosen to play this game that they didn't make this game up. They don't know the rules. They weren't there when the rules were written, and it's a fucked up game. You can fold and you get new cards. You have other options. You have options. And that's something, man. You'll learn that in lifted level 1. You got options.
Sweet.
And it's a fun game to play.
So if you had that thought that was lingering even unconsciously, do you think that you've worked as a catalyst character in introducing the concept of you having options to the people that you work with?
Yeah. More so recently. When I say recent, I've been doing this for 10 years. So like the last 2 years, last 3 years, ever since being involved with the Enlifted community. And I know you said subconsciously, but like consciously making people aware of their other options, like you have other options, would be a somewhat more recent thing, to my knowledge. So in the past, I can't say for certain. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Nice. That's cool. I think that that's freaking sweet. Before we were chatting, or before we started recording, we were chatting about uh basically birthdays coming up and how going into your 30s is awesome. And there's something that I think is interesting with age and with time. I think it becomes, as you're playing your own game and as you're acknowledging that there's options, I think life works like a fine wine in some cases where it gets better with time.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you believe that fine wine or that sweetness with time can be slowed down? What not prevents, but in distracts people from ripening? I'm just going with all the wine analogies and the fruits analogies on that one.
Yeah, I love a good analogy. What can slow someone from ripening?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can only speak from personal experience, so I can really project my own experience. For me, when I turned 26 and my brain finally became fully developed, as they say, it was no longer slush in the front here. Um, that's when things clicked. It's like gaining awareness for the first time, gaining sentience at 26 years old. Like you're supposed to be an adult. You've been paying taxes for a while and you're just now like turning on to it. Um, so for me, I was presented pretty obvious forks in the road many times in my life. And then at this time, there's a big one. It was the like you can go left and you can keep hanging with your friends at the bar, you can keep working at the bar, you can stay there, or you can go to the right and you can invest your time and your energy into educating yourself on a skill that you love, not only using for yourself but also to share with others. um, and I know that I took a right. I chose that path, and it was pretty obvious. Like I looked at all the people that I was surrounded by, and they were not the type of folks that I wanted to be like, that I wanted to be around. It's like, and at the same time, too bad you are that person because you spend all your time with them. Like you're a culmination of those 5 people, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look over here on the other side. It's like I look up to that person. I want to be more like them. I want to, embody some of their habits and take from them and learn from them. So I'm gonna go that way instead. Hmm. So getting back to your question, is there a time when people can distract themselves from ripening. Does that sum up the question?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really like that. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I like that because it's kind of like, oh, here's another fruit analogy, but but it's you can see when you have that one fruit that's rotten, and then if it's in the same vicinity as the rest of the fruits, it'll rot the rest of the fruits.
That is a fact.
Yeah. It
It's a
just popped
fucking,
up. I'm like, how did I even remember that? Fun fact of the day.
like, all your fruit's gonna go bad, dude.
Yeah.
I've got a friend. He's 24. He's very grown up for his age. He's very mature. I've known him since he was 19. He's worked with me at the gym since he was 19. And I see a lot of myself in him. We don't really look alike. We both have dark hair. That's really the only similarity physically we have. But I see so much of myself of like, he is chasing the same dream that I chased, like verbatim. He is on track, you know? He's just running parallel to my story. And like benchmark after benchmark after benchmark, I see him make the same mistakes that I made. And it's frustrating. I love it because it's like, I'm kind of watching the same shit I went through on replay, but through someone else. I love it. And it's so frustrating because when I see these mistakes made, and it may just be my personality, I approach him and it's like, hey, bud, what happened back there? Like, what'd you do? What happened? That sort of thing. And just like me, he gave the same fucking response of this, and that, and blah, blah, blah bullshit versus what I would do now. And it's like, God damn it. And I have tried to just flat out say, this is what you need to do. Trust me. You're on the same track I was on. This is what you need to do. And you're going to skip all this bullshit. Didn't work. He didn't give a fuck. He's a different person. Again, I'm projecting myself onto him. And I realized that he's gonna learn some lessons. And in a few years, things are gonna click, or whenever, maybe never. Who knows? Things are gonna click. He's gonna learn lessons. He's gonna live his own story. He'll be better for this. He's gonna make these mistakes. He's gonna lose his ass. He's gonna get hurt, and then he's gonna get better for it. Because he's a solid dude, and I've been able to watch him grow over the last 5-6 years. It's been really cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, like we're in the same field of work, and I'm just watching him struggle. I struggled, man. His struggle from mine very different. Thankfully, mine was like borderline extreme. So it's good not to see that. But like that struggle, man, it is a biological requirement. You have to do it. You have to go through it.
Absolutely. I have a kind of a mantra or a reminder for myself is either by choice or by chance, the struggle is going to happen. So things are either going to be delayed, as in making the choice to do it, then it's going to delay. Then by chance, circumstance, the cosmic coincidences are going to align in a way that is not exactly in our best interest. And that's when the opportunity to shift will happen, because things will get to a point where the present experience sucks so much where it kind of kickstarts the system. It's like, holy shit, damn, I didn't realize how blinded I was to my own shenanigans. And then there's the by choice, where it's okay, taken off the glasses of perception, those rosy glasses, and I'm choosing to make a difference in this trajectory. When you think of the point in time you are now, and it actually is kind of cool that now I'm just like filtering through, but it's kind of cool that that fella is that kind of like that time travel aspect, the time travel kind of scenario that we were going through. And then we were chatting about it because it is true where it is projections, but it's both the things that we both admire and resent in ourselves, we are going to recognize in others the most. And so the things that we are the most pumped up about, like how you recognize verbatim the characteristics, the traits, and the trajectory where he's going to hit the same point that you're at. And with your guidance, I would imagine at least would fast track that point. But hopefully it's by choice that he decides to take on that you as the Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Yoda rather than being the stubborn fella and waiting for the chance happening for it for things to adjust. How oof how do you find how so reflecting on that fella and also the people that you help now and the experience in the military and the experience that you had lifting a fuck ton of weight at a young weight and destroying yourself. What are some principles or frameworks that you filter the world through so that you can experience your best state of being?
Dude, I have no idea how to answer that question. I've never thought about that before. What are some
principles, frameworks, values, code of conduct?
Code of conduct that I use to filter how I see the world?
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody have a hard time with that question?
Honestly, that one came from the universe. I was just like kind of listening and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I think about frameworks often or mental molding. I like to think of it as mental molding. Okay. And so actually for context, okay, maybe it didn't just come from the universe. Maybe there is actually like a thought process in it. But when I think of the mind, I think of it as a mainframe of information that can be organized. Mm-hmm. And I suppose a framework that I have is a pursuit of a question of what is the truest truth.
Yeah.
And
before, yeah.
Yeah. And with that framework, it helps me separate being in something, so the perception, to being perspective. So I get to see a little bit higher up and be able to stay on track with what I would define as a good quality life, or my own little mission statement of being able to help people, but from my own learnings. So has there been a principle, a framework? It could even be a mantra that you may revisit on a regular basis to keep you. Do you have a North Star? There we go.
I have a bit of a mantra / attitude that I've adopted recently. It's very simple. It's actually here on my shirt. It is says who. I don't know that this is totally fitting your question. But I heard the word mantra, and 18 months ago I developed or adopted that. Was a big thing. Says who. And you could, yeah, this absolutely falls directly into all of the experiences that you had brought up, what with being hurt very seriously at a young age, going into the army, also at a young age, everything, all the shit that I had to deal with from age 18 to 29 and 364 days, right? It was like just being told a bunch of bullshit, or, you have to play these cards, you have to play this game, and you have to play it this way. Says who? Why? Nice. And that statement, you have to play these cards, that's a projection. You have to play this game, you have to play it that way. Huge projection. That person, they chose to play those cards, probably because someone else said you had to. Right? And that's just been passed down so many times. This is the way you have to do it. And there's been so many things that I wanted to do. I wouldn't say wildly differently, but things that I wanted to do. And I was told, hey, you can't do that. You can't do it that way. Why the fuck not? Says who?
That's sweet. Was there an event in particular that kind of inspired that, or that latched on? Did someone say it, or did you just hear it and you're just like, oh, fuck yeah?
I think I know that I've said it many times as two simple words. A client and I were discussing some mantras during one of our sessions, and his was discipline creates freedom. And I liked that. And I was either in lifted level 2 at the time, or I was like fresh off of a like a Tuesday talk that Mark had done. So like those juices were flowing, that wine was flowing. And asked him, like, if you have one, what is it? And then I thought up mine. I reflected on all the times someone bigger than me or older than me or some authoritative figure said, you can't do that, you can't do this. And it's all within moral reason, everything that I do. My answer is, yeah, says who.
I like that. I really like that, because very much along the same lines, where we are either consciously or unconsciously adopting the beliefs of the people before us. And it could be teachers, it could be preachers, it could be principals, it could be politicians, it could be parents. And there could be, I think having that question, like, says who, just gets the, it grants, when I say it and when I feel it, it grants permission to think deeper than just what has been told. It's like, okay, says who? Well, so-and-so said this. Okay, are they living a life that I actually want to live? Or are they living a life that someone told them they should live? And how is it that they're interacting with people? How is it that they're bringing themselves to the table? Do I actually relate to that? Do I actually want to be a part of that? Yeah. It's like, no, you have to. Says who? Like, why is it that you have to do the exact same thing? And I think the thing that's really interesting is, in this day and age, like present day 2023, we have so much more ability to bring our own sense of self out, and it's not, we get to choose our own tribe. And a tribe for survival is not as much of a necessity as it was back in the day. So back in the day, if we were out of line, then it could negatively impact the survivability of the tribe. And I believe at least this is how I'm kind of projecting it and just kind of reflecting on my own life. Nowadays, we get to bring that our own uniqueness out and about, as long as we have the courage to step out of that consistently talked about narrative.
Yeah.
What do you believe is a unique characteristic of yourself that what is something that is societally acceptable, but you reject it because it's out of alignment to your character? Like a characteristic or something along those lines. It's open-ended. You can go with that however you wish.
Not the best at reflecting on myself in that sense. Something okay. Characteristic of myself that is socially acceptable and that I choose not to do, like a certain behavior.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I can also readjust that question to a smidge. What is a societal expectation that you reject?
Ooh, man, put me on the spot with that one. I feel like I could just throw those out. But I like the way you put that. A societal expectation that I reject. Okay, this may be a little cute, surface level. As a personal trainer, as a young man in this industry, I am not expected to, but it is assumed that I sleep with all of my clients, or in that I'm really dumb. And I reject both of those things. That's the way that personal trainers / healthcare professionals, healthcare providers in this sense have been portrayed for a long time. You're a young-ish single guy in the city and you're at the gym. You're definitely sleeping with these girls. I'm not, and I refuse to do so because I'm a professional. That's the first one that comes to mind. I reject that. It's more of a stereotype.
I think that's a good one. I think
Not
it's
a
really good one.
party. Not a big drinker. Okay, drinking. Now,
Yeah.
I'm really good at. I can rip shots and I can rip darts all night. I'm good at it. Part of me really likes it. I don't do it. I do reject that of like New Year's Eve. Couldn't there? It's fucking amateur hour, man. There couldn't be a worse holiday. Like staying up till midnight, that's cool. Like this is the first moment of the brand new year. That's cool. I do like that. Like, do I want to pay $150 for an outfit and pay $100 cover at some bar and pay $50 for a drink that's gonna like I could get into this bar tomorrow for free and not that I don't want to do that. That's a very, at least very much in Nashville, like that's the thing to do. You put on your sequence dress, you get a ticket to a bar, and you go be crammed in there like sardines. You never get to use the bathroom, and you never get a drink. It sounds fucking miserable to me. I don't like that.
I resonate with that one. Well, especially now. Actually, I resonate with minus the darts. I resonate quite a bit. Because yeah.
You guys darts up in Canada?
I don't know. I don't know very many folks that actually we have them. I don't know how many people actually call them darts though. Say again, sorry.
Talking about cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I thought that was like I heard some Canadian guys, some hockey guys talking. They called them darts. I assumed that was a Canadian thing.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, that's for sure. I actually quite like that too, because in the time where now I haven't been drinking, One thing that's actually shifted is with my time not drinking, I recognize how folks prioritize the drinking, and then whatever the activity is that they're getting together for, that's what they're getting together for. It goes drinking first, and then it's hanging out with family and friends. It's drinking first, and then it's going golfing. It's drinking first, and then it's going on a holiday or a trip. It's interesting.
That's something that I've ever since I can remember, even at a very young age, I noticed it. Like, can't we just like go rock climbing? Can't we just do the thing? Can we do the activity? Can we watch the movie, or yeah, simply hang out? Like, why do you have a bottle of champagne everywhere you go?
Mm-hmm.
I have my reasons why. I have many reasons why I don't like it. And it isn't a so much a judgment thing. I wouldn't say no, I don't judge people that do drink or someone that does enjoy to have however many drinks that they want. Um, it's more so don't make me do it. Don't pull me into it. Like I told you very nicely, I'm not interested. We'll go play golf, we'll go hang out, we'll go do the thing for sure. I just don't want to have a drink, you know? And most people, especially the ones that I surround myself with now, they understand. Like, cool. They stopped offering, they realized I'm an adult, and if I want to have a drink, I'll have one.
Mm,
Chances are they're very, very slim, but
fair. How would you go about either for yourself or for a client, how would you go about the process of a client comes up to you and they're like, James, my man, I have the holidays coming up and they're concerned about having alcohol pushed on them or even food pushed on them, and they struggle with the boundaries aspect.
mm.
Whereabouts or how would you go about coaching someone through that little dilemma?
I would ask them, do you struggle with setting a boundary? Ask them very simply, straight up. Um, I would ask as many questions as I could before I just made any statement. I learned this through Enlifted. Level 1, questions pull, statements push. Yeah, write that down. That's good shit.
I am.
Um, and once I heard that said and I started to experience it, if you can ask those simple questions, man, you will just pull them in, and they will eventually say for themselves the right thing, the thing that they wanted you to say. They're going to say it themselves, and now they've created buy-in. They've given it an identity, and you don't have to tell them anything. It was within them all along, type thing. I would ask them about that. Don't have many clients that come to me with that specific issue. It's normally like an in passing conversation of, oh, it's the holidays and I'm going to eat and drink all of this so much, you know. I don't see that as the end of the world. You know, if it's somebody that's really worried about it, that really wants to make a change, they'll do something, they'll say something. And then on the other side, if it's someone that's like kind of dreading it somewhat of, here we go again, the holidays are coming up. I'm going to eat and drink myself happy. Um, yeah, I would ask them, starting out, do you have an issue setting boundaries? And they would, let's assume they say yes. They kind of say it as a question.
Yeah.
Are you asking me or are you telling me? I'm telling you, yes. And then you'll see their wheels spin, like they're thinking back, oh shit, I have a problem setting boundaries. Like, this is being made pretty clear to me right now. And that could lead down a pretty deep road. Depending on that person, you know, how well I know them and how well do they respond to, you know, do they respond really well to someone who's really soft and understanding, or do they respond really well to someone who's more stern? That's something that I'm still perfecting. I try to perfect that every day. People respond differently. Like my former athletes, I don't ask them anything. I tell them everything and then they go do it. Whereas like the stay-at-home moms or the people that have a career or everybody else, that, you know, I'm much softer with them. Just so we can get the job done. Yeah.
Nice. There's a,
your...
oh yeah. Yeah. And yeah, the questions are mostly open ended. I'm just kind of going with the ones that I'm inspired to ask in the moment. There's this fella that I just got introduced to. It was through the Danny Miranda podcast, and then I just went down a rabbit hole of his content, and it's Erwin McManus. And he has a book. What's it called? It's Mind Shift, I believe. And in the book, he talks about, and he talks like it falls right into the Enlifted stuff, man. Like what he says about speaking, and he has a little free course called Art of Communication. And I went through it, and one of the things that he said that I really like is speaking is a combination of engineering as well as artistry. Yeah, and his stuff is like what he talks about is really cool, and watching him speak is really cool too. And he talks about in his book the 7 frequencies, and I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but the 2 that stand out are the commander and then the healer. And an example of oh yeah, I just popped it up. An example of a healer would be like Oprah, for example. She would be considered a healer. If you're watching her interviews, she's like pulling information out. And I think for the most part, that's very much inspired like with myself. Like having a conversation on a podcast, I recognize that I take on the frequency of the healer frequency, kind of like Lewis Howes with the School of Greatness. And then there's the commander frequency. What else do we got here? And yeah, it's pretty cool. The Maven frequency brings clarity, creates a paradigm shift. The motivator frequency brings energy, infuses self-belief. Challenger brings courage, awakens Colin. Commander brings confidence, offers direction. The healer brings acceptance and extends wholeness. The professor brings kindness or brings knowledge and assures competency. And the seer brings vision and generates innovation.
Where'd you get this? What is this called?
This one it's called The Art of Communication, and theartofcommunication.org/ the 7 frequencies of communication is where it is. And they have a little mini course, and it's really freaking cool. Going through these different frequencies. And what I like to do is kind of similar to the projection. A projection is a reflection. So if I'm looking at each of these 7 frequencies, what I like to do is recognize a time that I've been one of each of those frequencies, or it's been like 48 hours since I learned about these parts, but I went through and I kind of tried to pinpoint a time that I have represented one of each, and having that reflection and seeing the comparison of like, okay, the healer is Lewis Howes, the commander is Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, for example. And I don't really remember where I was going with that one, but it is really freaking cool when you get to hear about all these different frequencies and then having conversations and words be a combination of artistry and engineering. How do you find yourself engineering statements to work in favor of rather than against your progress?
I want to repeat the question. How do I find myself engineering questions or statements to work in favor of the progress that I want to be made? I wish I had a good answer for you, and I don't. It really all depends on what was said to me. It's all in the moment. Very specific examples of what the person says. I have found that most 99% of people are very resistant to really reflecting within.
I agree with that.
I want to check out the art of communication. That sounds really cool. Yeah, depending on what they say, a lot of times you can repeat the statement back to them. You just say it right back to what they said in the form of a question. Yeah.
Nice. That's pretty sweet. With where was I gonna think? I had a thought on that one. So with where do you, or what do you find to be a common, and you can speak for yourself on this one, it doesn't have to be just with your clients, but what do you find to be a reoccurring thought that pops up, if at all, that pops up where you recognize, like there's an intuitive like resistance to it? And is there a particular situation that you're more so resistant to, and how is it that you would overcome it, I suppose?
Maybe this means I don't get out much, or I don't do many new things. I gotta do the same thing over and over and over again. I have not been, I would like to think not. I haven't been very resistant recently. I'm pretty open to things. For example, there was online dating. That's a thing in society. It's a thing that I've partaken in. I went on a few dates with this girl recently, and things weren't. Here we go. All right. Things were not clicking or vibing the way that I wanted them to. So I resisted doing the thing that I would have done, which is, or the thing a younger, less mature version of myself would have done, which is just disappear, ghost, as the kids say. I resisted doing that and told her, it was a form of confrontation. I just told her very simply, like, I don't see this going past a certain point or really becoming any kind of relationship. I think we have good friendship chemistry. I'd like to keep it there, that sort of thing. So probably not the answer you expected, but I resisted doing the shithead thing, thankfully, and did the adult thing, did the grown up respectful thing. However, a couple months ago, a friend of mine, a person I am friends with, who we want to go into business together, which I did not know this at the time. I wanted it to be a thing, and I was hesitant on like saying that out loud. I was afraid. Yeah. And I resisted saying it, opening up about that. And then one day realized, the thing that you want is on the other side of what you're scared of. So say it.
What would you do if you knew that you couldn't fail?
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a Tony Robbins question.
What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I get real weird with that one. I don't know, Kyle. What would you do if you knew you could fail?
What would I do if I knew that I couldn't fail? Which I think that given a long enough time horizon, there isn't really a such thing as a fail. I think of a fail as an acronym as a faithful attempt in learning.
Oh, yeah.
And then fear, I also have an acronym as false evidence appearing real. And I found that taking scary words and twisting them into a tool to empower rather than disempower is a fun mental game to play.
Mhm.
What I have as a goal that I'm very scared of doing because of how big of a mountain it is or seems to be in my mind. I believe that I believe that folks can train their mind into working for them rather than against them.
Yes.
And something that is societally accepted is the idea that our mind is the way it is and will always be that way forever. That's something that I reject. Mushrooms help with that. And and the 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 thing that is scary about it is that I know that I'm intuitively pulled towards it, and it is something that is really deep rooted. And I have this philosophy that if you take care of the city takes care of you. And I think that if or the goal that I have is the idea that folks can mold their mind, even if they have a variety of disorders, because a disorder is on a continuum of order and disorder. There's not just disorder. Disorder exists while there's no order. If we create order and it's internalized order, then we are creating a narrative architecture in our mind that will propel us forward. And then just being okay with removing or rejecting aspects of our old self to make way for our new self.
Yeah.
And the thing that's scary about it is not the actual in doing the thing that I want to do, which is I have an idea where it's going it's a concept, or in my mind it's a structure. I call it hopeless or homeless to hopeful. And there's a bunch of programs for folks that were in some pretty like shoddy spots, and then it's reintroducing them into quote unquote society, but providing them skills to be able to work in the trades and stuff like that. And I think that when we can take care of the folks if they're willing to, that are in the programs, that they're like, I want to freaking make changes. They're just done. And they want to make changes and progress their life in a way that they feel fulfillment, that they feel physically and mentally fit, where they are surrounded by a good fellowship of people, and then they end up being able to deal with their or handle their finances better, because it's all skill based. Everything is a skill. All of our characteristics and traits are just skills that we've acquired over time. Behavior is a skill. And so on paper, I know that I can actually pull this off. And I know it's probably going to take about 25 years, is how I estimate it. The scary part is actually, for myself, is exposing my heart to it. That's the scary part. So even like as I'm talking about it now and saying it there, I feel it like in my gut. And there's like a part of it where it's fear, but it's also excitement. There's joy, like I could feel it in my eyes, where there's joy in the idea of it, but it's the opening up the heart to be able to bring it all in and be able to pull that off. So I don't think I would fail in the endeavor as long as I don't get in my way. I think that that's kind of a cool kind of thought process that I'm just kind of like philosophizing myself through as we're talking. So it's a very reflective little thing where I was like, oh shit, I didn't actually know it was the heart, or that I was actually really thinking about. Whew. But also the crazy thing is that now that I put it onto a podcast, it's going to be something that's going to be put out into the ether. And well, that's fucking scary too.
You put it out there. You made it real. Have you written it down yet?
Yeah, I put it into my journal. And then I also have a Notion tab where I go in and I put like things through it. And a couple of my friends, one of them in particular is actually, I went for a walk. I just ran into her. She lives in the building too. And I was telling her this idea and this concept, and she's like, oh, I actually, she's like, she works in the industry, or in the intermediary part. So it's when folks are going through rehab recovery, trying to get back on their feet. There's that little in the middle where they're acquiring skills and teaching skills and stuff like that. And then it goes into the rest of the world. And I think that my little spot is like right there, where I can go into that transitionary period. And yeah, so I have a lot of notes on that one, and it's like I'm pretty excited for it, but I'm also fearful of it, because I think there's going to be a lot of my soul and a lot of my heart put into it, and that's going to put me into an unknown vulnerability that I'm not quite used to. But it's something that I'm both excited and fearful of. And that was my little tangent on what I would do.
Very cool. Yeah, I dig that. When that question is posed to me, the first things that click into my mind of like, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? They're always more of a physical task, you know? Like that's where I intuitively go to. That's the first thing is, and I see this map you have in the background, and I was thinking, I don't want to climb Mount Everest. Like, fuck that. However, what if I swam across the Pacific Ocean? That would be pretty impressive. You can't fail. Like, that's a world record. You're going to have that forever. Mm-hmm. Not nearly as cool as what you said. That's a question that I heard it recently, probably on Instagram. One I want to put more thought into, something I'm going to put more thought into.
I dig that. I dig that. Well, my friend, we're at the top of the hour. We'll be able to close it out on this one. And I got one question before my last two. Is there anything that has to be said that hasn't been said yet?
I think we got it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Before I go into the questions too, I just want to acknowledge you, and I want to say that there's a lot of reflection that happened in this conversation and during this podcast, and what I love the most about it is it's like I'm not a Grinch. I'm not a Grinch by any means, but I feel like having this conversation with you gave me the opportunity to be able to expand my heart a smidge and be able to reflect on what it was that was preventing, or not preventing, but slowing the progress of that vision that I have. And I want to thank you for that opportunity of being able to go into the fields, dude. I went into the fields on that one. And I didn't know you were gonna flip the question on me, so I wasn't prepared, but I'm glad you did. I'm very grateful for it.
This is your podcast. I got to interview you for a moment.
You sure did. Oh, I very much appreciate it. That's cool, man. I think you're doing awesome stuff. I think you're a great character. I think that you got some good soul, and I'm excited to see what sort of reflections pop up after this episode, and where it takes you. And I'm excited to see that journey and that process, because I like watching it, because the folks can't, unless they're watching on YouTube. I like watching people's like the gears working. And I was watching, I'm like, yeah, pulling some thoughts out, and man, it's good. I'm excited to see that. Say a last.
That's real. That's good stuff. Like when you get somebody to think like that, I enjoy it, and I appreciate all of the questions and the things that had me stumped. So many of them were, fuck, I've never thought of that before. I haven't thought of it that way before. I enjoy that. So thank you.
My pleasure, dude. Well, I got two more questions, and these ones are tough ones too. So the first one, for the context, you are at the end of your days. You are on your deathbed. No content exists. This podcast doesn't exist. Any books that you may write in the future don't exist. What piece of advice? Oh yeah, you're surrounded by the people that you care for. What piece of advice do you want to pass on before you kick the bucket?
I'm looking over here because I have a whiteboard that I write things on. And a lot of this could be interpreted as advice. And in that moment, there's two bits that I got. Number one, this is an original me. I said this to my daughter not very long ago. And what's written up here is that, I'll reframe it. It's all made up, and you can be whatever you want to be. Yeah, everything's made up. You be whatever you want. The other one, again, given the context of that setting, is, I don't remember where I heard this. I definitely saw it on the internet. Have the courage to start, the discipline to endure, and victory is a matter of time.
Damn, those are good. Yeah, those are awesome. And then the final question.
So,
the very best version of you is sitting next to you right now. What piece of advice does he have to give you for this season of your life?
I feel like it's up on that board. I don't know that it's advice. It's definitely a statement. All you got to do is win. That's what he would look over. He would elbow me and he would say, all you got to do is win. Keep on this track, keep on this path. You're going to do it.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Well, folks, that's what I've got for you in today's episode. Where can people find you, James?
Nashville, Tennessee. If you're ever in town, I'm not going to give up my phone number. But yeah, if you're ever in town for whatever reason, you want to hang out, even if you just want to like know where the best places are to go, ask me. And you can ask me on Instagram at One More Rep. ONEMOORE. Last name is Moore. One More Rep. REP.
Nice. Well, folks, if you love today's heartfelt episode, please do me a favor right now. Take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, tag me with my handle at DapperDudeKyle, along with at One More Rep, ONEMOOREREP. That is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, keep up the kindness, and I hope your day treats you as good as you look.